Are you dreaming of visiting Switzerland? Planning a trip to Switzerland is very exciting, but it can also be overwhelming. How do you choose which of the many scenic cities, towns and villages to visit? Which mountaintop excursions should you take? And what's the best way to get around Switzerland? And of course, how much of the country can you realistically see within your time frame? If you've asked yourself any of these questions, this is the podcast for you. This is the Holidays to Switzerland travel podcast, and in each episode, your host Carolyn Schonnefinger chats with Swiss travel experts to answer your most commonly asked questions, provide practical tips, and take you on a virtual visit to the most popular destinations, and of course some hidden gems to help you plan your dream trip to Switzerland. And you'll hear plenty of conversations about Swiss cheese and chocolate too. Are you ready to plan your trip to Switzerland? Well, let's get started.
Hello and welcome to a very special episode of the Holidays to Switzerland podcast. Not only is this our 100th episode, but I'm also welcoming some very special guests who are here today to chat about the many reasons to visit Switzerland during autumn, or fall for our North American listeners. I was fortunate to catch up with today's guests at a Switzerland tourism function in Melbourne, Australia a couple of weeks ago. You may recognise some of the guests from previous podcast episodes, so it was wonderful to, this time, chat to them in person rather than through a computer screen. Before we hear from our guests, I'd just like to take a moment to say how thrilled I am to be bringing you episode number 100. I started the podcast in June 2020, a few months into the pandemic, when it became clear that the world would be shut down for the foreseeable future. Despite the fact that travel was off the table at the time, I figured a podcast was a great way to provide travel tips and inspiration about Switzerland for those who had a future trip in mind. And to be honest, I could talk about Switzerland for hours on end. So it was a good way for me to share my passion about the country and to learn from the expert guests that agreed to come on the podcast. So since June 2020, every second Wednesday without fail, a new episode has been released, something I'm incredibly proud of. Throughout the past 4 years, I've had amazing support from Switzerland Tourism and the many fantastic guests, some of whom have appeared multiple times on the podcast, and many of these folks I now call friends. So a huge thank you to each and every guest and supporter of the podcast. But I'd never have made it to 100 episodes without the support from you, my amazing listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in, whether you've been with me from the start, have just found the podcast, or are somewhere in between that. My mission is to help make your Switzerland trip planning easier and to provide inspiration for your upcoming travels. If your vacation to Switzerland has been influenced or helped in even the smallest way by something you heard on the podcast, then my mission has been accomplished. Now, let's delve into the real purpose of today's episode, and that is to discover the many great things about visiting Switzerland during autumn. If you're a regular listener, you'll know that I'm a big fan of travelling around Switzerland by train. After all, the country does have the densest public transport network in the world. So I asked Andy from Travel Switzerland what he considers to be the most scenic train journey during autumn.
Well, Caroline, you try it again, and I have to say, well, there is no favorite route from my side. But the good news is that all the panoramic trains are running in autumn, and of course all of them are very beautiful, because autumn is one of the most beautiful traveling times for Switzerland. So at least until mid-October, all the panoramic trains are running. Some of them are going into hibernation after that. Just try it. I can really recommend traveling by panoramic train in autumn in Switzerland, of course.
Andy was very Swiss there, staying neutral, of course. But Sia from Zentralbahn does have a favourite route, the Lucerne-Interlaken Express, which connects the two popular Swiss destinations every hour. She told me why she likes it so much.
Well, the Zentralbahn is a panoramic train also. And from Lucerne to Interlaken, this is my very, very nice journey. And when the Brunnich Pass, it's the highest point. This is my favorite part. The people can enjoy the whole scenery of the changing the leaves in autumn. It's so nice, so beautiful. And also, I think the orange and blue, orange and the brown and some yellow, the autumn color is very well matched with the blue lakes. So to the Interlaken, their journey in Brienz Lake, it's a very well mixed the color. People can enjoy it. So, yeah.
Sounds wonderful.
Thank you.
When it comes to the Jungfrau region, the train journey to Jungfraujoch is one that many folks are familiar with. But there's another scenic route that Daniel from Jungfrau Railways enjoys very much during the autumn.
Yeah, so while the Jungfraujoch Top of Europe is an all-year favorite, in autumn I especially like the Schinnige Platte railways. From there you go through the colored forests up to the top of Schinnige Platte, and then you have the perfect view on Eigermönch Jungfrau in the autumn clear air. So that's a perfect place to go in autumn.
Switzerland is truly a year-round destination, but a lot of travellers only consider visiting during summer or winter. So I asked Alan from Schilthorn Piz Gloria, a mountain in the Jungfrau region, what his favourite thing to do in autumn is.
Autumn, the colours are unbelievably beautiful. So hiking's all year round, but hiking in the autumn's really special. I go up to the village of Moorn almost every lunchtime while I'm in the office, and I almost always walk from Moorn down to Gimmelwald, and it's just stunning walking down there, especially in the autumn. And it's not too long. I've done it in 17 minutes, but you're looking about a half-hour, 40-minute hike normally. But if I'm going to miss the cable car, then I put on the speed and get there to make sure I catch it and get back to the office. So that walk's great, but it's also great to be eating the game seasons there. If you like your meat, you'll get different kinds of game in the restaurant. So that's a great thing to do.
For Peter from Engelberg-Titlis in central Switzerland, autumn is all about the views. I'm not surprised, as at almost 3,250 metres, or 10,600 feet above sea level, you can see for miles from the summit of Mount Titlis. And you can admire the 360-degree views from the Titlis Rotair, the world's only rotating cable car that takes you on the final section of the ride to the summit as well.
Well, Engelberg and Mount Titlis in autumn, I really like that you have an amazing long-distance view. People don't know, but usually you do have the best views in autumn because of the weather. Really, the clear weather sinks down. You don't have the thermals from summertime. So if you go up the mountains, whether you go hiking or you go just for a mountain excursion, I think that's really something you should not miss out in autumn when traveling to Switzerland. You can see all across the Alps.
The autumn colours are just as spectacular in Zermatt as they are in other parts of Switzerland too. Being active whilst enjoying the colours of autumn is what Claudia from Zermatt Cableways loves best about this time of year.
So Zermatt in the autumn is fun. What you could do, for example, in a day, you could go skiing in the morning, because actually, like late autumn, our ski season really kicks off. We open up the first chairlifts and the snow can be really good and it's still quite quiet. So you would ski in the morning, go back home for lunch, and then in the afternoon have a hike or a bike, and all the trees start to get like orange and red. You get all these beautiful colours.
Travelling during autumn doesn't mean you'll miss the opportunity to enjoy some fabulous events and festivals either. Wine festivals and alpine descents, when the cattle, which have been grazing on the alpine pastures during summer, are brought back down the mountains, are a couple of popular autumn festivals, but there are many, many more. I asked Kelly from Jungfrau Region Tourism what her favourite autumn event is.
So one big and important event in the Jungfrau region in the autumn is the Jungfrau Marathon. So it's a very special marathon because the runners have to conquer an altitude difference of 2,000 meters. So it's really just for the hard runners, but it's not only for the athletes, especially when it's also for the visitors, very special because nowhere else you have these beautiful panorama because the run is going from Interlaken up to Egeglädischer. So it's also for the visitors very spectacular to see these runners in front of these mountain backdrops from Eigenmann and Jungfrau.
Wow, that would be amazing to see. How many runners generally enter?
There are 4,000 runners which enter every year, and it's sold out every year. So it's quite crazy for me to think about that there are so many runners that really want to do this run. But it's very popular and sold out every year. And there are even runners from all over the world joining this run.
Fantastic. As the biggest city in Switzerland, Zurich hosts many festivals throughout the year. So I was keen to ask Evelyn from Zurich Tourism what her favourite autumn event in the city is. Quite a hard pick. Zurich is kind of the city of festival and events, and mainly in autumn. We have quite a lot. So maybe just to mention a few of them, we have in September Weltklasse. Beginning of September, that's where the best athleticism meet in Zurich. Then we have the Zurich Design Weeks with exhibitions, talks, workshops by newcomers and established designers. Then we have the UCI Road and Paracycling World Championship in Zurich in September. We're going to have a lot of broadcasts from the city. In October, you get the Zurich Film Festival. Great festival for really great films as well. The Digital Art Festival is also in October. In November, you can come to the Wine Fair, which is on a boat. Quite a nice experience. And 21st of November, we start with the Christmas markets. Something for everyone, for sure. Taking an excursion to a Swiss mountain summit is always a good idea. But for Manuela from Mount Pilatus, an autumn visit is extra special.
So we also call it the Golden Autumn. And what would be better in the Golden Autumn than the Golden Round Trip? Because it's one of the brilliant ways to experience the autumn colors from different perspectives. First on the boat from Luzern to Altnachstadt. Then you go up first through the forest with colorful autumn leaves, and then you go up to the top of the mountain before going down by cable car, offering you again a different perspective of the autumn forest, basically. And then I also highly recommend to do some hiking on top of the mountain, because autumn is actually a great time for the view. So in autumn, the view is the clearest that you can get usually. Has something to do with the weather and the temperature and the humidity in the air, so that you can actually see the furthest in autumn. So it's really great to go up to a mountain peak like Pilatus to enjoy the view of the Alps. And last but not least, also the animals are usually a bit more active in autumn because they're getting ready for winter time, collecting like some more food. So it's actually a great time to observe the animals. For example, on one of our ibex safaris, which combines an overnight stay at one of our hotels, 3 or 4 star, on the mountaintop at over 2,000 meters above sea level, with a guided hike and ibex safari with one of our expert guides.
Autumn is the favourite season of Renato from Interlaken Tourism too. He shared his top reasons to visit during autumn with me.
So the top reasons to visit, to discover Interlaken in autumn, there is, from my point of view, no better season than autumn. We call it also Indian summer in Switzerland. So everything is full of colors. The leaves are falling down. The mountains are covered with snow. You can already smell winter, but the temperatures are still nice. This is definitely the best reason to visit Switzerland is maybe autumn season. The weather is also very nice. You have still a lot of activities which are doable in autumn. So it's also harvest season also regarding the culinary part. There are a lot of things to discover. Also regarding adrenaline, as you may know, Interlaken is the European capital of adventure. There are a lot of activities which are still doable, like paragliding, like kayaking on Lake Brienz, which is an amazing, unique experience. You could still visit, for example, Giersbach, the biggest or largest nature park in Switzerland, which is amazing with stunning waterfalls. And of course, the funiculars, the cableways are still running, so you can easily go up in only 8 minutes by taking the funicular to Hardelkon, top of Interlaken, and enjoying a view over Interlaken, seeing both lakes, Lake Brienz and Lake Thun, as well as also Eigermönchen Jungfrau, the famous mountain trio. Or, of course, you can start in Interlaken and discover the beautiful Jungfrau region, because Interlaken is still the gateway to many other areas, and you can go up to Jungfraujoch, of course, top of Europe. Also in autumn, there are less people. It's definitely less crowded. You will get more for your money.
As you've just heard from the Swiss themselves, autumn really is a fantastic time to visit Switzerland. Not only are there fewer tourists than in summer, but you benefit from lower accommodation rates, mild temperatures, and the stunning Swiss scenery is made even more beautiful by the changing colours of the leaves. For foodies or wine connoisseurs, autumn is the perfect time to visit to enjoy the local specialties too. Daylight saving time extends until the end of October, so you can really make the most of your days and get out and about exploring via the fantastic Swiss public transport network and the many mountain railways and cableways. One thing to be aware of is that some mountain railways and cableways close for a short period during the latter part of autumn for their annual maintenance, so some mountain summits may not be reachable during this time. The Swiss public transport system, however, operates every day of the year, so you'll never have a problem getting around. Have my guests tempted you to visit Switzerland in autumn? I hope so. If you'd like to learn more about any of the destinations or experiences you've heard about today, I'll include links in the show notes so you can discover more. I also recommend you listen to episode 79, if you haven't already, where we chat in more detail about the benefits of visiting Switzerland in autumn. Thanks very much for tuning in to episode number 100. Next time, we'll be back to our regular format and we'll be discovering the many amazing things to do in Grindelwald. Until then, tschüss!